Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Hope you had a great weekend. So here we are in the Independence, week leading up to Sunday. So I guess, on our program, this week, we're probably going to be talking about nationalistic things leading up to the 57th anniversary of our dear country. Our guest this morning, Dr. Amadele Boyo, social commentator, and Mr. Yemi Makwaderon, strategy and governance expert. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
So you guys are gearing up for the 57th anniversary. I mean,
gearing up for my birthday.
Okay, there you go. So you share a birthday with the country. Now, fittingly, perhaps, something of a coincidence, no doubt, but Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu he delivered a keynote address at a King's College event, King's College
Old Boys.
Old Boys event. His speech was delivered by one-time Finance Commissioner in Lagos State, Mr. Wale Edun. But essentially, it was that restructuring is the only way to progress in Nigeria. That just about encapsulates it all. And this, no doubt, is a very, very, shall we say, germane message in these times when we're hearing all sorts of calls. The unity of Nigeria is not negotiable, is one thing we've heard. On the other side, we've heard that some people, have a separatist or secessionist kind of an idea. So all of these ideas are out there. Restructuring has been there for a long time. Now, as I said, the theme of Tinubu's address was that restructuring is the only way to progress in Nigeria. Let me start off with you, Yemi, if I may. Restructuring, what does it mean? Because I think it means different things to different people. Just very much like democracy probably means different things to different people. Give me your thoughts on the whole notion of restructuring, because the background to restructuring, I think from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's perspective is that, look, it's become this much noise simply because past governments haven't delivered on the promise of good governance, on prosperity, on development, on political sagacity, development in the economy. None of that has been delivered in absolute terms. And so that's why we have all of this.
Absolutely. But let me start by saying that much more than democracy, the lack of congruence or the divergence in views about what restructuring actually constitutes is much wider. For me, there is nothing sacrosanct or there is nothing esoteric, about the word restructuring. Indeed, Nigeria keeps going through one form of restructuring or the other. Do not forget that this country at the time was we had a parliamentary system of government. And then we adopted the presidential since 1979. Now, we also...
That was a form of restructuring.
It's a form of restructuring. We also used to have, a regional structure, beginning with, 3 regions, and then the Midwest region, came into being. And then we eventually went into the structures of, 12 states, 19 states, 28 states, and then 36. And of course, the 2014 confab also suggested additional 18 states to be created, spread all over the 6 existing geopolitical zones. So restructuring is actually a work in progress. I agree in total, with Asiwaju's submission that if past governments, has placed a lot of emphasis on good governance and have delivered dividends of governance, not democracy now. Because I tell people, when you use the terminology dividend of democracy, there is only one dividend of democracy, which is the freedom of choice. It doesn't mean that building roads, bridges, economic growth and development, those are not exclusive to democracy. Indeed, we have so many countries in the world today that are not democracies, but that rank very high when you look at every economic, index that you may want to use to measure the development of an economy. So I agree that good governance is key. I also agree to some extent that restructuring, particularly in the area of fiscal federalism, is paramount. But I only see it as one of the ways to possibly enhance, participation, to enhance ownership by Nigerians, and not necessarily development.
Thank you very much. Amadili, when you look at it, there's so many aspects to this theme that restructuring is the only way to progress in Nigeria. One of the reasons is that there are grievances, and if you look at it with a microscope, or with a magnifying glass, I don't think there's any particular region or section of the country that will not have one beef or the other. Now, Tinubu, for avoidance of doubt, said, let it be known very, very clearly that I am an advocate and I support and I want one Nigeria. I want the unity of Nigeria. However, that does not, as he put it in his address, blind him to the fact that there are concerns that need to be listened to. Not, as it were, I don't know, I can't remember exactly, not sort of condemned. Yes, that's it. Not condemned, but they need to be listened to. And he said that against the backdrop of other. There is no equivocation about the fact that I am totally, absolutely for a united Nigeria. But there is this whole matter about people must be listened to and understood, and then move forward from there.
Yes, I think that was very pertinent. In addition to that, he had explained that Nigeria is like a marriage, and that when you are getting married, you should know the covenant of the marriage. And once there's a problem in the marriage, you're going to ask yourself, why? Is it infidelity? Is it distribution of resources? Is it that your husband has lost his job or the wife is not happy? There's something that will make a couple begin to say...
Or that one is not treating the other fairly.
Yes. So
under this marriage?
Yes, he used the analogy of marriage. And that's pertinent because at the end of the day, like what you've said now, and what he too alluded to, over the years, there's been no decade that we've not experienced one issue or the other that has led us to restructure in one way or the other. What has virtually been lacking since 1966, after the first military coup, January 1966, has been fiscal federalism. After January 1966, when Ironsi took over, the country began to be run as a unitary country, unitary state. And when Gowon came, Gowon maintained he created states, but he still centralized the fiscal, he still killed fiscal federalism and continued with a centralized income and expenditure pattern where the states got money from the federal government, then in Lagos, later Abuja. So it's physical federalism that has been the bane of the country. In the areas of maybe them dividing the country, having more states, people have had what they wanted. But when it comes to physical federalism, where regions or states want to control their resources, people fight for that. But what they have failed to realize is that the truth of the matter is that most states in this country have failed individually in 4 key areas. One, internally generated revenue. People make a lot of noise because there's oil to be shared, and these problems are coming up because oil prices have dwindled, and they think that it's because the federal government is eating all the money, not knowing that the money coming is too small to go around. So whenever the states are broke, they stimulate one kind of problem or the other. The truth of the matter is that we must learn to do IGR. If IGR is good, look at the whole of the Southeast, 44 billion naira last year. Lagos State, 300 and something billion. If IGR is poor, if we give you your state to run and decentralize like in the days of the regions, can you generate the money internally to run? That's one. Oh, people say, well, if you give us South-South, we collect royalties from oil. But oil is going out of fashion. Will you be able to make money from fish in the South-South? Will you be able to generate money? These are the issues. So it's one thing to say fiscal federalism, apart from the centralization of resources. What about policing? People want restructure in the area of state police. Good. But you can't pay salaries of teachers. Yeah, will you be able to pay salaries of police without federal government support?
And therein probably lies the challenge.
Sorry, can I just round up, sir? But by simply putting this last word, if we want restructuring, we have to define what we really mean by that, like what you said at the beginning. Is it fiscal? If it is fiscal federalism we want, or we're talking about federalism in terms of, okay, increase revenue allocation in various states. or you want more states?
Well, oftentimes we've had this conversation about true federalism, that what Nigeria really requires is true federalism. That, again, you could write a whole book on. What exactly do you mean by true federalism? But some of the points that Amadili brought out there about the fact that, look, the different component parts are not necessarily able to, one, generate enough internally to sustain themselves to an equal measure all over the place. Is this, how do you think that affects this whole conversation? Because there are those who, quite frankly, get fidgety once this conversation comes up, this whole conversation of restructuring. What do you mean restructuring? Is there a need for that apprehension?
Absolutely. There is no need, absolutely. I was sharing somewhere that, you see, we most times when Nigerians, particularly, you know, people from the southern part of Nigeria, from the southwest to the south and the southeast, there seems to be a mindset that the North is against, you know, fiscal federalism, which is a major component of the restructuring that we're talking about. And that, to a very large extent, is true. Unfortunately, the North itself, at least a large proportion of the North, as exemplified by the voting pattern in the recent attempt, you know, to amend the Constitution. When it came to the devolution of powers, you found almost 100% nay vote from, you know, the northern part of the country, and then it couldn't scale through. It's because they also failed to recognize the strength that they have. Now, when you talk about, for instance, food production, agriculture, the North produces between 65 and 70% of the food that we consume in this country. That is immense power. Look, any country that can feed itself, any state that can feed itself can protect its citizens. But if you cannot drink crude oil, you cannot drink naira notes, you cannot eat dollars. So the truth of the matter is that every part of this country need to begin to look inwards, like Dr. Bowie said, about what, you know, they can do for themselves. But again, what will stimulate that is a ground rule that says you can keep a large chunk of what you generate. And I think that is where that divergence is between those who are saying no to restructuring or fiscal federalism. Because again, one of the benefits of federalism is that it recognizes diversity. And it also recognizes the fact that, you know, there is strength, you know, in diversity when resources are pulled together. So the weak part of the country can be strengthened by the stronger part of the country and vice versa. But then what a lot of people are saying is that let us define this relationship. And for me, I think it's very simple. Those who say go back to the 2014 Confab report have some justification, right? But I only say that go and look at the provisions, the recommendations of that Confab. Some of them are not only outrightly contradictory, but self-serving. Now, that report recommended the creation of 19 states in all. Create one additional state in the southeast to balance, and then create 3 additional in the 6 geopolitical zones. The same Confab also recommended that states that are not viable should merge.
Yes.
So you begin to see a kind of, it's a 498-page report, by the way, with almost, 500 recommendations. So
Indeed.
we just need to look at those ones that are critical at this point. And I think fiscal federalism, power devolution, reduce what goes to the federal government and also reduce the responsibilities
Okay, we'll
of
come
the
back and
federal
look at
government.
it some more. We'll take a quick commercial break. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. We're looking at the address of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu recently to the KCO Old Boys Association over the weekend, delivered by one-time Commissioner for Finance in Lagos State, Mr. Wale Edun. Now, he had said in that paper that clearly we need a better Nigeria, and we must move with great speed because we don't have time anymore on our hands. But I was a bit intrigued when, at the part of the speech that said that, well, to achieve this better place, some things, some old things must change. But it also means that we must revive some practices that we are now trying to forget. And earlier in the speech, I don't know if that is, I don't want to quote anything out of context, but earlier in the speech, he had also said that, you know, not all change is necessarily good. Who would like to take a stab at, first of all, the riddle?
The strategists.
Yeah, let the strategists take a first stab at what I think of as a riddle that, look, wait a minute, we have to be careful here. We're trying to forget some practices that need to be revived, even as some things indeed do need to be changed, but also, you know, not all change is necessarily good.
You see, when Asiwaju Tinubu speaks in these kind of, you know, parables, it's difficult to second guess him. But I can only say that from my own point of view also, I think there are some values.
Okay, I was going to go to values, especially on that we're trying to forget.
There are certain values that Nigerians, irrespective of the religious persuasion or the ethnic or cultural, you know, differences that were common to all of us. Number one, being our brother's keepers. Number two, work ethics, good work ethics. Number three, punctuality, timeliness. Number four, value for integrity, and, you know, and so on and so forth. And that is why a number of people, small minority, are looking beyond this issue of political restructuring. And they are saying that we need an attitudinal shift. And when you look at every country of this world that is making progress, that is in position of leadership, whether it's in economic development or technological development or, you know, cultural, you know, renaissance, these are countries that have common values which they hold there, irrespective of whether they are democracies or autocracies. But these are values that are African, that are indigenous to us, but that over time we have allowed, you know, to escape through the windows. I want to assume that these are some of the things that the Asiwaju was referring to. And of course, in the area of change, for somebody who is an expert in change management, many times change is just for the sake of change. Not because when you are at a point for too long, you feel like you need to leave that place. It's no longer exciting. But you will actually be going into a worse kind of scenario. For me, I don't think Nigeria is in a situation where we can say there has been any dramatic change, really, that is negative. Because some of the things that we're trying to correct now are to ensure that, you know, people who are entrusted with public patrimony, the collective patrimony of the people, do not commit malfeasance. And they are honest, and they use those resources for the good of the people. For me, this is a forward-looking change. But then there are also those who are saying change from this to that. Some are saying go back to the regional form of government. But then what were the lapses that were observed at the time that made us to decide to, you know, break down the regions into states? Most times, the past is always good old days, but I think we need to really define where we're going. I think that is a missing link. For me, as a strategist, I wrote a position paper for the 2014 confab that, look, that conference does not need to go into too many details. Just come up with a strategy for Nigeria. What should be the vision of Nigeria that will keep everybody busy and that will make everybody see themselves as part of the building blocks to the attainment of that vision. Today, as we speak in Nigeria, we do not have a shared vision for Nigeria, and that is a major gap.
Perhaps you'll agree, Dr. Boyo, and this lack of a shared vision, some would even go as far as saying that the society, such as we have evolved into, has become downright unfair. Yemi spoke about values, that, quite frankly, I'd like to claim those values too: integrity, work ethic, and all of that. It looked like all of that went out of the window. And then what we've had is decades of entrenched corruption, which is going to obscure any vision of corruption, any vision of development. And so you now have people who are highly skeptical. You have a large teeming mass of people who have seen what can be done negatively in this country and have become entrenched and are fighting against any kind of meaningful change, because that will be affecting the status quo and affecting their own basis. You see it in all aspects of our lives. This is a big problem, and that's why the Buhari administration, I imagine, decided that, look, corruption is right up there, even though critics have said, look, there's more to this society and this project than just fighting corruption. But what do you think about that whole thing? Because the society has become unfair.
Yes, and what you're
People
saying,
who have made it, who have salted away so much, can now come out and be talking about we need a change in this society. But they've got stuff salted away in Switzerland and UK and wherever. So you can understand the real people who are going to make change happen because of their numbers probably are just looking at them with what Achebe referred to as corner eye.
Yes. In fact, what you're saying is quite pertinent, because 70% of Nigerians today are below the age of 40 by demographics. And anybody who is 40 was likely born in 1977, for goodness sake. And then you can imagine, between 77 and today, what has he seen? All he has seen is military rule. All he has seen is corruption, wickedness. He has never seen a good university system, a good high school system, a good federal government college. He has grown up seeing the other side of Nigeria. And so most of these young people you can't even tell me they know what is binding us together. As he said, no shared values. And Mao Zedong laid the foundation for the modern China. He didn't lay the foundation over dinner. It was a tough time. People died. And they had to define what China would be like. And it came as a result of values. It came as a result of the Little Red Book. It came as a result of community. I'm not saying you should go after Mao Zedong's place, but I'm saying, what do you want to see in Nigeria? Where do you want to see Nigeria in the next 20 years? If we're going to do
in other words, an ideology. Because oftentimes we've heard it said that Nigeria seems to be lacking in ideology.
I think ideology is such a big word. Well, if we use a simpler word like shared values, like what do we call commonalities? All over this country, for instance, there's no tribe that does not believe in respect. There's no tribe that does not believe in sanctity of marriage. There's no tribe that does not believe in the fact that you have to honor the elders. You have to, you have to be punctual, and you have to do the right things.
Yes, but yes. What does any party believe in? So that what distinguishes you as a party? Yes, you've got to have a view on, shall we say, political economy, for instance. What's your attitude?
Before we get to those big things, let us even respect ourselves. Let's know that if you're an Igbo man, you are a Yoruba man, you can still live together. There's no doubt about that. There's doubt about that. There are very few homogeneous societies in this country. Somalia is homogeneous. They're not at peace. There are very few homogeneous societies in this world. America is not homogeneous. It's the ability to hold the diverse natures of people together, religious,
what
cultural,
is holding it together? Fairness.
Yeah, fairness, justice,
justice, equity, fairness,
and then defining the ground rules. You can't base justice when there are no laws and rules. Like, for instance, now we say, what if you're from the east, you can stay anywhere in Nigeria. Then if you're from anywhere in Nigeria, you can stay in the east. The average Easterner wants to live anywhere in Nigeria. But is it true that can a Yoruba man become governor in Abia State if he has stayed there for 20 years? If he did primary school there, secondary school there, university there. Can an Obama, if his father came to Nigeria to school and went to UI and married a Yoruba man and he became a Nigerian, can an Obama become a president in Nigeria? Will we not say, oh, he's not a Nigerian? So there are so many things that we can see in other societies that they have been able to acculturate and accept as true.
I hear all that you're saying, Dr. Boyo, but it seems to me like you're maybe inadvertently telling us those things that make it difficult for us to get to where we need to be.
Are inside us. They're not outside us. We are basically internally. You see, you can steal, but don't steal my own. You can take somebody
So
else.
everybody is looking out for his own interest rather than the community's
I'll give you an
interest.
example. The name of this country officially is Federal Republic of Nigeria. But we're not a republic. Our governors are taking chieftaincy titles. We still have kings and ezes and emirs. In a republic, we should be a republic. We shouldn't be having chiefs and kings in a republic. We should have people that are democratically running a country.
Yeah, so it's like we don't really.
It's
like we haven't been able to make up our mind. What exactly? Do we want a monarchy?
That's
do
what
we want a monarchy? Do we want a? I got to go on another break.
Right.
I beg your pardon for saying so, but we'll be right back. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. We're looking at a thought-provoking paper, delivered by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, presented by Mr. Wale Edun over the weekend. And that paper, so many points, food for thought there, so many items that were food for thought. He spoke, for instance, about even at the best of times, when oil was at an all-time high, what happened to the economy. It was characterized by imbalance and gross inefficiency, and it led on to the corruption that we have now. So more than ever before, how this economy is going to be fixed, because Tinubu also spoke about our country being in need of great repair. But one of the biggest assets that we have, our people. The whole world is looking at our numbers and thinking that if only we had that. But maybe clueless kind of leadership in recent times, those numbers are just really like an albatross around our neck. So because there hasn't been creative management, creative governance as a matter of fact, everybody's been squabbling for his own little own. Corruption has taken over, and there are the papers in the universities from time to time that you hear delivered, and you come out to fora and you hear these things. But the ordinary Nigerian is not going anywhere, arguably.
Hopefully we'll go somewhere, but like somebody wrote, if you don't know where you're going, any road will lead there. So the major challenge
exactly
with
I like that. I like that a lot, because it really asks the question, so what exactly is our focus in this country?
Where is the roadmap?
That's why we need to set our strategic direction. You see, when there is a strategic direction that is shared, not by all, but by most, you're going to see a galvanizing of activities, thoughts, ingenuity, into the attainment, of that objective. Of that strategic
but doesn't that bring what Dr. Boye referred to as that big word of ideology? So that we know that APC, this is your ideology if you're going to ask us for power. PDP, this is your ideology if you're going to ask us for power. We have to key into it. ABGA, this is what you guys have as an ideology. I have to be able to choose the method of arriving there, which you pointed out.
See, one of the profound canons of strategy, of development, is that structure follows strategy, not the other way around. Now, we are talking of restructuring. Restructuring to attain what? Now, the what must be set forth. We should borrow from the corporate environment. Every serious organization has a mission statement which encapsulates its vision, its strategic imperatives. How do they want to behave to get to the destination that they are going to?
So if it were a political party, if it was a political party, you'd say that was their ideology.
The ideology is like now how to get to that destination.
Okay.
But you need to set the strategy, and that is why, irrespective of whether we don't really have a destination, but then we do, because when you look at the leaders we have had, particularly in the immediate pre-independence up to even 1979, every Nigerian leader will tell you that Nigeria is the fulcrum of the black race.
And Africa is the centerpiece.
And that Africa is the centerpiece of our
foreign
relations. And when you understand that your foreign relations is an extension of your domestic agenda, you will fully understand that Nigeria has been positioned, to provide leadership for Africa. And so until we begin to see ourselves beyond Nigeria. I want to be this in Nigeria. By the time we begin to see placing Nigeria, look at soccer.
First.
WAFU, when last did we do WAFU? I thought was a forgotten competition. But yesterday, a WAFU competition attracted the attention of most Nigerians, whether of the southeastern or northeastern stock. Everybody wanted to relate to that because there is a goal. If you win the game, you win the cup. But here, when it comes to our politics, when it comes to governance, nationhood, we have abandoned, building nationhood.
So much so that, let it be said, Nigeria is, we have too many economic exiles. We don't think of it in terms of those guys trying to cross the ocean from Libya into Italy, as bad as that. But there are Nigerians among them. And you see there are Nigerians all over the world that I don't think they put too much stock on what we're talking about now, because they're busy doing everything they can to just get hold of a foreign passport and say, oh, I've escaped it all. So,
and that's because the goal is still not clear. The great sage Obafemi Awolowo had the 4 cardinal points of the UPN: free education, free health, employment for all, and rural integration. Now, we can have a similar goal in this country. By the year 2030, which was like Vision 2020, that never materialized, that by the year 2020, today is 2017 or 2025, every young child should not only have gotten through basic 9 of the universal basic education, but must be able to read and write. In America today, if you are not in primary school at an age, you are arrested, and your parents are going to look for you. Now, every child in this country should possess a basic 9 education and can read and write in English. If it's a simple thing like that, it will be getting somewhere. Then now, that's why we have economic migrants outside this country that can't get jobs. In our own generation, you will leave this country with a degree from even ABU or UI, you landed in America, you got a job. But now you finish from a polytechnic, you can't write.
Which says a lot about the state of development of our education. Everybody in government, as you know, that can afford it.
Even out of this country.
Course,
sector. If we had something
and then
like,
ASU will be striking here.
Yes. If we had something like in the next 5 years, every local government will have a functional health system, and maternal mortality rate will be reduced. In the next 5 years, we're going to reach a position in this country where there will be functional railway line. Ethiopia has a railway line now costs just $200 million and transverses the country. Indeed. We should have a railway line that can go from Lagos to Sokoto to Calabar, Maiduguri to Lagos,
in other words,
Kano to Benin through Abuja.
So much that should have been done, that could have been done, but is yet to be done. Mr. George, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Uncle Yori, kindly permit me to disagree with the argument that restructuring is the only way to progress.
Okay.
We never said that.
No, our caption says that.
The whole hula baloo about restructuring appears to me like a small screen devised by Corruption Fight Back. I do not agree that our structure is an impediment. What is impeding progress in Nigeria is corruption. All the arguments I've listened to about restructuring, no one has offered a convincing reason. When you restructure Nigeria, there will be no more siphoning and stealing and mismanagement of public funds. That there will be no more ethnicity in governance, and that there will be service instead of, looting. But these are where the problems lie. If you disagree, change every local government in Nigeria to a country tomorrow. The same problem of money disappearing that is meant for service will continue. In my view, we should concentrate on how to eradicate corruption, or at least reduce it drastically. That is the point. People who don't want the corruption fight are the ones that are putting this restructuring in front, so that the fight for corruption can be eclipsed. I don't agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Okay.
But the process of restructuring itself, people that are calling for restructuring have never denied the fact. If you read that statement very well, he did not say there are no other things. Ashwaji was not saying that restructuring is just the sole pillar on which Nigeria is going to rest. Part of the problem we are facing is still corruption, and you have said it over and over again. Corruption is still an issue here, because if you even give the Southeast a Republic of Biafra, can the Aguleri and the Muleri people stay together? Can these people...
And that is the point that Ashwaji Tinubu sought to make, that if you have a division mentality, even when you are giving that which you are agitating for now, because you had that mentality, you will still continue with that divisive mentality.
In the olden
even
days,
within the family, which you can't get any smaller, any closer. Because you already have that divisive mentality, you will still be trying to divide.
In the days of the Eastern region, the Cross River, Ogoja, and Rivers people were fighting that they were being marginalized in the Eastern region. It was the fight of those people that all were there. So in the North, Nepo and the Middle Belt people were fighting that the Northern region was marginalizing them. So we can see that even going back to regionalization does not still take care of everything, without values, without defining where we are going, and also without killing the cancer of corruption.
One second, please. Let's do that break and then come back and we'll be home free. Stay with us, please. Welcome back, home stretch now. Well, restructuring, the only way to progress, according to Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We've seen, a dissent from that. Look, if you ask me, that is Mr. George calling in, the corruption is the biggest problem. It is that is knocking everything out of alignment. And that if we could get that right, we never mind restructuring. It's almost, he didn't say so, but it's like almost these things might, well fall into place if you could just take out that canker war. What do you think about that whole idea? So I left it with you.
I think, well, Mr. George may be right that restructuring is not the only way. But you see, talking about corruption, we are still operating.
But restructuring would sort of give us a new order. It wouldn't be one thing.
No, if we're talking about fiscal restructuring and fiscal federalism.
Mr. Orji in Ghana. Good morning.
Yeah, Uncle Yore.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, and good morning, your guest over there.
Good morning.
Uncle Yore, please permit me. I would disagree with George.
Please go ahead.
Because restructuring simply means, restructuring means a lot of things to some people. But people that are afraid of restructuring is only one part. Yoruba know that they are capable of catering their own. Igbo know that they are capable to catering their own without taking from another tribe. I don't even see a reason why where someone from Sokoto will be a police commissioner in Anambra. That doesn't happen in even America. That is the meaning of restructuring, whereby I can control my thing, not someone to give order from Sokoto that such will happen to Sokoto region where you have never even attended, where you have not even been, but we are giving order because of British tell you to do that.
Okay, well, I understand you, Mr. Orji. Thank you very much. We understand your. Thank you for your contribution.
It's
a worrisome point that he makes, because
it is a wrong premise to argue for restructuring. It means what you are simply saying. Look, nobody is self-sufficient. Nobody is no country. Look, no part of this country can be self-reliant. And you see, we have a terrible mindset, thinking that the Northerners will suffer when we restructure.
Exactly.
They are quietly preparing for that day now.
Exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised. They are quietly preparing for it.
And the point that Mr. Orji made.
And we will be shocked that if care is not taken, they will now be ready for restructuring.
Whereas everybody else is caught pants down. Because the point Mr. Orji made, it was his right to make the point. I was a bit concerned about it, that look, why wouldn't any Nigerian anywhere in this country be able to rise up and have a position of responsibility?
That's number one.
That's number one. We've heard this said before, that Northerners have high political office in the East. We used to have in the East. You know, in the so
it's not true. It's not true. The chief security officer of a state is the governor of the state. A commissioner of police comes to a state with DPOs, comes to a state with assistant inspector general of police there. A commissioner of
yes. Are you picking up on Mr. Orji's particular example?
Yeah, particular example.
The particular example of a police commissioner.
That's even operational.
But that's operational. That's the point. It's operational.
And again,
I thought he was making the point.
It happens in America because every county has its own police. So you can't bring somebody from Louisville to go to
FBI that is everywhere.
But in Nigeria, we have a Nigeria police force. But even operationally, there can be a policy within the police that whoever will be the commissioner of police must be from that state. That doesn't require the constitutional whatever. It's operational.
But then, have you not wondered that the houses of assembly and the National Assembly has not really put its head into this restructuring issue? Because they are going to be the losers from restructuring. Let me tell you, simple elections in Rivers State could not hold. This is not restructuring now. Election in Rivers State. Many states cannot even hold their local government elections.
Why?
Is it
because of disturbances?
But that's not restructuring. It's not restructuring that will stop a state from having internal peace and cohesion.
Okay, Mr. Maxwell in Ghana, good morning. You're our last caller.
Good morning, Uncle.
Good morning, sir. I wonder if you can reconnect before we go.
So as I was saying, if you are even saying that, oh, people in the West can cope, oh, people in the East can cope, everything is not about production and food. It's about interrelationship.
Exactly.
The Easterners are traders. They need the market of the West Africa.
Exactly.
The Fulani man needs the market of the whole of Nigeria. The point is, which state in this country is not only self-sufficient in food production, but are you self-sufficient in security?
Well, Tinubu referred to some opinions as fringe opinions. They must be allowed.
Yes,
nevertheless. But there can be some fringe opinions.
And that's where I fault the presidency. The presidency should encourage and engage people in discussions. And that's part of what he was saying. Let people talk. Let's listen to them.
But how do you do that? What platform do you do? You start another conference?
No.
See,
National Assembly?
That's what the president said when he addressed the country after his return from medical vacation. That there is a national assembly. Even forget national assembly, even the state assemblies in the southeast. How many houses of assembly in the southeast had even discussed this issue?
Or released the position paper.
Okay, gentlemen, we've run out of time, but really it's a temporary thing because all of this week, this is our theme. This is going to be our theme. Ideas for the political development of Nigeria leading up to the Sunday independence anniversary. Thank you very much, Dr. Madili Boyo and Mr. Yemi Makbadiro. Thank you very much, sirs, for coming on and sharing your perspectives with us. Okay, that's our program. Join us tomorrow, please, for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.